Hello, and in this presentation we will be discussing whether should all officers in England and Wales be equipped with tasers. The aims of this presentation is to discuss the level of force that police use across England and Wales, to discuss the costs and benefits of arming police officers with tasers, and discuss the impact on the relationships between the police and local communities. My current view that I will try to argue across is that the police officers are currently underarmed and underprotected for the situations they are asked to handle and keep control of. The arm of a taser would be an ideal addition to all police officers so they can feel safe and comfortable to complete their duties in potentially dangerous scenarios. However, I feel that the current climate is not a state yet where all police officers need to be armed with live ammunition, as this can have serious implications will be explained later. The College of Policing shows that basic officers are currently only equipped with body armour, handcuffs, incapacitating spray and metal batons. However, are still expected to enter areas where potential offenders are armed and dangerous, where they put their lives in serious jeopardy for others, and enter areas where the protection of members of the public are at risk. There are three laws that provide the right for officers to act force upon the general public. The common law, which is when there is a genuine and honest belief that there is an imminent danger which justifies the force being used. The Criminal Law Act of 1967, which is to prevent an immediate crime or assisting in the lawful arrest of offenders or suspects. And finally, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984, which is the power of the constable to use reasonable force where any provision of this act confers on a power on a constable. Within these three laws, the term force must be used reasonably is found quite frequently. Examples of these laws can be shown in Humberside Police Force, which highlights their use of power on their homepage. They list all legislations that govern the police officers to use their force on members of the public who need to be acted on. The first order of the Metropolitan Police Act was introduced in 1829 by Robert Peel, the Home Secretary at the time. This introduction provided a police force across London and the surrounding areas. These officers were ununiformed, held military characteristics, and finally unarmed, because at the time there was no threat and therefore no need for the police to be armed. The 1829 Act introduced a centralised and unified system of the police in England. The Act constituted a revolution in traditional methods of law enforcement according to Lyman in 1964. The police also chose to keep their officers unarmed because they wanted to avoid a separation between communities of the police force. During the 19th century, members of the public were asked to be part of the police force community by reporting any suspicious activity to officers to aid in making the streets safer. But arming the police officers would show a gap and ruin this close relationship once held. According to their personal website, the Police Federation is an association for the police constables, sergeants and inspectors who aim to ensure that every officer commits an act in the public interest, with public accountability alongside our accountability of the members also being held. However, now that society has become more and more dangerous for local communities, officers need to be able to combat this. In 2008, Wallenting and Wright performed research into this topic and highlighted what the Police Federation have implemented to combat against the high demand and increased danger to ensure their safety. Introductions of the use of incapacitating spray and the use of electronic guns have been introduced, whilst the 14-inch wooden truncheon has been replaced for an alternative, more effective style of baton. The English and Welsh police force have started using tasers since 2008, however are only carried by armed response vehicle officers and other specialist units in the force. In 2011, the US Department of Justice researched use of conducted energy devices, such as tasers, and found no conclusive medical evidence that indicates a high risk of serious injury or death to humans from direct cardiovascular or metabolic effects of short-term CED exposure in healthy, normal, non-stressed, non-intoxicated persons. They also found the risk of death in CED-related use of force incidents is less than 0.25%, and it is reasonable to conclude that they did not contribute to death in many of those cases. After recent times, there has been a shout to routinely arm all officers with tasers, which as a result can have multiple benefits, such as preventing assault on officers from potentially dangerous criminals, because they are able to disarm and disable them from a safer distance due to the taser's long strike range. Under the same reasoning, they can also protect the public from potential criminals as well. And finally, it gives the officers armed with a taser the extra feeling of confidence and removal of anxiousness, that they're going and protected and not vulnerable to being attacked. This will only improve their performance as an officer in completing their duties assigned. Overall, the introduction of tasers would make the streets a safer place for members of the community to go out and enjoy without the fear of crime. Potential criminals are deterred of deviant behaviour through the thought of being caught, because with tasers, the police are going to be better equipped and more effective at their role. McCann 2009 states the rate of resistance to arrest increased if the taser is made more available to the officer. By looking at the advantages of arming all police officers with tasers, you think the only impact would be positive. However, this may not always be the case. Yes, on one hand, residents will feel safer and more comfortable to go out and enjoy their local area because any potential risks have been removed. And this will result in a positive relationship between the police and community because they're making their lives safer. And when they see the use of a taser is proceeded with caution and used effectively, it will increase the confidence of residents in the police because they're completing their duties and keeping everyone safe. And as a result, this will increase the police force legitimacy. However, on the other hand, a sight of a firearm on the body of an officer may cause unneeded tension and fear between the two parties, damaging relations. Certain individuals may be too scared to go up to certain officers through fear of the firearm and makes the policing a step above them. Some individuals may feel that a taser on certain officers is unnecessary for the jobs they are doing and is only there as a threat, which causes unneeded tension and damages relationships. The confidence and legitimacy of the police can be reduced or damaged if residents see officers using their taser incorrectly. The overuse of a taser, even though not fatal, can result in a deathly opinion shadowing officers that use them. It does not paint the police in a good picture when the taser is used unnecessarily and only to show the dominance of the force. The question is then casted of what would have been the outcome if it was a real gun. On the 22nd of July 2005, Jean-Paul de Menez was shot dead by Met Police CO19 Firearms Unit at Stockwell Tube Station. The officers were in the hunt of terrorists in London who had attempted to blow explosives the day previous, according to the Guardian's report. After many discussions, the Crown Prosecution Service in 2006 decided that no police officer would be prosecuted. However, the Met was fined £175,000 and charged with the costs of £385,000 after being found guilty of endangering the public. This case provides a very good reason to why police officers should not carry weapons with live ammunition. The impact of this incident has had a severe impact on the confidence the public holds of the police force, because how can officers be trusted to carry a live and dangerous weapon if they are putting innocent members of the public in danger? As well as a reduction of confidence and legitimacy in the police force, members of the public may start to have irrational fears of the police through the fear of being harmed incorrectly. In an interview focused on forgiveness, the mother of de Menez states, "I don't know yet, because I'm still in pain, and the police officers were very ill prepared. My son was honest and smart. He never harmed anyone. The police officers killed an innocent man," according to a BBC News report. Peter Squires investigated the relationship between the rising gun crime in the UK and the need to increase police armed responses. Squires argued that the rapid and alarming introduction of guns into society will be problematic, and the use of guns by criminals but also officers will have negative consequences. He quotes, "You only have to look at the number of American police officers who are shot on duty with their own guns." He also states Swedish police who are routinely armed shoot 6 times as many people as Norway police who are not. And finally quotes, "Carrying a gun changes the dynamics of any encounter between the police and the public." These statements show that Squires is against the proposal of arming police officers because the disadvantages will outweigh the advantages. The addition of any armed weapon to a police officer will put more lives at risk, including their own, as well as damaging the relations between the officers and the community. However, there are some individuals who disagree with Squires. Deputy Chief Constable Simon Chessman, who is the lead for armed policing on the MPCC, is in favour of arming all police officers. He states there would be a significant difficulty coping with attacks and on-the-run terrorists like those faced in Paris. He also says a series of non-notice attacks would significantly stretch the armed resources, and very quickly we would be asking for military support. He finally states, "We will carefully consider whether we need to further increase the number of highly specialist officers working in armed response vehicles." Chestnut is in favour of arming all police officers and highlights with this process communities are a lot safer for potentially harmful events such as terrorism. Data from the Home Office between 2016 to 2018 saw police forces of England and Wales seeing an increase of armed operations by 19% to 18,746 incidents, which then rose to 20,186, a further 7% by the end of March 2019. However, only a 3% rise of armed officers to 6,459, which again rose by 3% in March 2019 to 6,653. Crime involved in armed weapons within England and Wales is drastically increasing, therefore so is the number of armed officers, but not at the same rate. But what do the members of the public think? In 2007, 72% of 2,156 adults wanted to see more armed police patrols. And in 2017, 72% of 1,581 hours wanted routinely armed officers within the UK with guns. As the demand on the police has increased over the last years, with the workload becoming more dangerous and challenging, I feel now is the correct time to arm all officers with tasers. However, I feel it would be a step too far to arm all police officers with firearms because it would cause a great tension and break the relationships between the community and officers. The use of a taser is a perfect middle ground for arming the police. This is because it provides the police with an extra layer of protection so that they feel safe and comfortable completing the job in hand, but not too much that it causes unwanted fear for local communities. Overall, the introduction of tasers would improve the safety of local communities for everyone to enjoy without the consequence of damaging public relationships.